Hello again, rail fans. In this episode, I'm investigating something that's been a mystery to me for a long time. The single, always red light at the top of certain signal arrays on the CSX. And now I learned some other railroads. It's been a mystery for me for a long time, so we're going to take a little unofficial investigative trip to see what's behind that single red light up there. We'll also show how a freight crew sets out a locomotive along the way on the main line. And along the way, we'll show you 3 or 4 really good, easy rail fanning spots around the Tampa area for spring breakers or anyone visiting our Florida West Coast beaches this year. So let's depart. It's early spring right now in Central Florida. The weather is about as perfect as it gets. Highs in the mid-70s, lows in the mid-60s, and clear sunny skies. If you're on spring break or coming from a beach vacation on any of the Suncoast beaches, Clearwater, St. Pete, Paso Grille, Anna Maria, or Sarasota, Lakeland is going to be about your best rail fanning bet if you're trying to hit the high iron for a day. After getting to Tampa, you'll take I-4 eastward. While it can be a slowpoke mess for westbounders, going east on I-4 in the mornings is not too bad. Take the Kathleen Road exit. That's number 31. On the long ramp, we'll pass under the CSX Vitus subdivision. That's the main line running from Lakeland to Vitus Junction on the S-line near Zephyr Hills. Now drive south. First stop is Fairbanks Street. We're now about half a mile south of I-4. Not the best rail fanning spot, as there's no good place to park. As you can see, I have to jump the curb to get off the road. While my instincts coming here were right, my timing was pretty bad. I was getting out the gear when the gates came down and this local sprung by. It's L762, a last-mile job that works a plant a couple of miles to the north called Griffin. He often has that old bay window caboose that gives the conductor a place to ride for the long backing moves this job has to make. I wish CSX would paint these things once in a while. We'll see him again before the day is over. A significant customer on this line is Owens Corning. They make blow-in insulation, and that requires mineral products that come in on covered hoppers. A quick look southward on the line, and there sits a train. We know he's stopped because his headlight is dimmed and his ditch lights are not on. That's the 10th Street crossing and the north end of the Lakeland siding. We'll drive down to 10th Street for a closer look. He's tied down and crewless. With those loaded rock hoppers on the head end, my guess is it's M452, Hialeah to Waycross Daily Freight, waiting for the new crew that's as of yet nowhere around. Here's the signal at the center of our mystery today. It governs the exit from the Lakeland siding. 1 red light on top with 2 3-light heads below. Why would they put a single red up there that never changes color? Does its location at the end of a siding tell us anything? Over to the right, the mainline signal has just 2 3-light heads. There's clearly nothing happening here soon, so we'll move elsewhere. About a 5-mile drive away is Winston Y, the northern entrance to the ex-ACL Winston Yard. This is a bona fide hotspot in Lakeland because of mainline traffic on the A-line and the freights coming in and out of Winston Yard. Here we got a whole bunch of signals with that single red light on the top. These 2 are at the stem of the Y leading into the yard. Both have exactly the same setup. Tracks are exactly the same. Very slow going. Behind us, we see the signals out on the main line. There are 2 because it's double track right here. The number 1 track signal on the left has 2 heads. The number 2 track signal on the right has 3 heads. The 3rd signal on the right governs the north Y track. It has that lone constant red on top, but all 3 of these signals have a 4-light head on the bottom, likely due to all of them having a green, a yellow, red, and lunar white lights. This location is North Winston Y. Now down on the south leg there's some action as a yard job is switching out a cement plant that is located right on the Y. Cemex has for a while received materials by truck, but CSX in the last year has sold them on bringing in some of their aggregate by rail. They installed this switch and the spur track just for the customer. They back the 10 loaded cars down onto the spur, where they'll couple up with the empties that need to come out.
That's good. Clear down straight, 98.
Now, with the empties coupled to the loads, they pull all the way out onto the south wide track. Once the last car clears the turnout, the conductor lines the switch back to normal. Then calls for the shove to push the empties up beyond the switch.
Alright, you got it, folks.
With the cut point now beyond the switch and the brakes howling on every car, he calls for the stop. Now he asks for a 3-step protection to go safely in between the cars.
That's a good, man. 3 steps.
He ducks in to pull the cut lever and then calls for the engineer to pull ahead.
That's made up right and clear. Ahead, 98. Give me 3 cars, get over the switch.
This is the age-old maneuver of switching the customer, pulling out empties and replacing them with loads. Once they get the loaded hoppers down below the switch, Mr. Conductor jumps down, bends the switch back to the spur track, and they shove in to spot the cars for unloading by the customer. To facilitate this maneuver, the dispatcher has had to set a series of swing lights. That's slang for setting up the computer to keep resetting the signal to allow a crew to pull out past that signal a certain number of times. The South Y signal is showing a lunar white restricting indication. Other than an absolute stop, restricting is the only other aspect this signal can give. So what's that fixed red light at the top actually do? It's my opinion that the single fixed red on top has 2 or maybe 3 purposes. First, as a fail-safe in case one of the bottom lights goes out. There will always be a red light burning to tell a train crew to stop here and call the dispatcher before moving past it. Second, as a speed modifier. In places where limited, medium, or slow speed is required, you don't need anything but a red on the top. Because in places like this, where the speed is always going to be slow, you can't get a high green here. The track layout won't allow it. Third, and I learned this from the February edition of the FEC Historical Society's Speedway magazine, the single fixed red on the top could also mean the track you're on is ending and about to join with another track. I don't know if that's true or not on the CSX, but the definition lines up with a lot of the places they have these on the CSX. This single fixed red on the top is not new. Nearly 3 decades ago, my friend Fred Clark Jr. sent me this photo he shot at Vitus Junction. The track in the middle is the main, the track on the left is the Vitus siding. Note the signal governing the siding, single fixed red on the top. This was 1997. Back at 10th Street, a rail crew van has taxied in the next crew for M452. And that first train we saw this morning, L762, has finished their work at Griffin and is shoving back to the yard at Winston. Since M452 is holding the main line, the 762 local must use the siding to sashay around and go out the bottom end. Now that the local is out of the way, the M452 crew can go to work. Their first job is removing one of the engines in the train's consist. The dispatcher will set up a series of moves to allow the train crew to pull the engines north of the siding switch, then back down into the siding, and then into the storage track. There's a Coors can caught in the crossing. I assume it's empty, but the big GE locomotive will take no notice of it. After 18 steel flanges roll over it, the aluminum can will be almost unrecognizable.
Got it restricted. Let's back it up. 7303. Give me about 10.
Restricting, riding 10 cars, 7303.
After waiting a minute or two, the switch opens and the signal changes to allow the backup.
Austin clear. Give me 5. 3. Back it up. 1.
This lowly storage track was once upon a time called Back Junction, the northern entrance to the massive Lakeland Yard of the Atlantic coastline. 45 to 60 trains every day moved through this yard. It had engine shops, car repair shops, and was responsible for almost all of the ACL's phosphate business to the nation, whether by ship at Port Tampa or by rail up the Vitus Sub and north from Waycross. The old Lakeland Yard was closed around 1984. By then, everything had moved to Winston. The conductor has the lone engine cut off and tied down, and the two remaining engines are now back out on the siding, and the last thing to do is to restore the electric lock. The electrically locked switches are installed in signal territory so that any turnout from the main line or signaled siding will alert the system when it's open. If for some reason this switch were to be left open, the signals at either end would not allow a train to enter the Lakeland siding. The dispatcher has already stacked in a signal allowing M45211 to exit the siding when he's ready. The red over yellow over flashing green is a medium approach medium. That indication is medium speed through the turnout ahead, then proceed, approaching the next signal not exceeding medium speed.
M45211, speed approach medium, 10th Street, side to the main, northbound, 7303. Tail light burning. Taking 2. Alright, that's 5 foot on trail. About 10 feet. Good stretch.
At 12:47, M45211 has dropped the engine, coupled back up to the train, and is departing 10th Street for Waycross, Georgia. In the consist this morning are 40 hoppers of rock from a South Florida mine, presumably one of the quarries in western Miami-Dade County. Then, behind that, 31 gondola cars loaded with spent cross ties. CSX is wrapping up its regular winter tie replacement in Florida. The tie gangs always begin the year here, and as the weather warms up, they move north. On the bottom are 45 empty auto racks, tri-level train cars that bring new automobiles into South Florida and usually return north empty. I never did learn why 452 set out that engine here at 10th Street or who picked it up.
Here it is, Kathleen. 452 north.
Another great Lakeland spot is Lakeland Connection on Main Street. This is sometimes a crew change point for the southbound M453 if he's too long to fit between Lakeland Junction and 10th Street. They'll pull down around the Y and stop just short of the A-Line junction named Lakeland Connection. This 453 is being held here for Amtrak 92, northbound service coming to Lakeland and then Tampa before going on to Jacksonville. Today, some local rail fans are set up and waiting for him. They got word that this train has two special locomotives on it, the big yellow Operation Lifesaver unit and the 50th anniversary Amtrak engine.
Main track between milepost 8876.1 and milepost 8876.2, signs no SGP.
Even if you can't see him, you can tell that Amtrak is in the station because he usually calls the dispatcher here to get track authority into Tampa. About 1,700 feet to the west is another favorite spot of mine, South Lakeland. This is where the double main's number 2 track ends and the line singles up. And look what we have governing trains moving north on that number 2 track to the single main. A signal with a fixed red on top. Moving from track 2 to track 1 here is another place where a train cannot get a clear signal or an approach or any 3-light aspect with a green or yellow on top. Track conditions here determine that restriction. None of this affects the approaching Amtrak 91. He's going south and he's on track 1.
I'm at a 1361, clear link connection and clear South Lakeland main track. I'm headed back home now on US 92, and it being early March and strawberry season, I'm pulling off to the area's most famous roadside stand, Parksdale. Founded by Plant City strawberry pioneers Roy and Helen Park, they set out to not only grow strawberries, but make use of them in really delicious recipes. The strawberry milkshake is my favorite. $5 gets you a ready-to-go shake loaded with Parksdale-grown strawberries, not more than a few days out of the ground. Parksdale is on US 92 on the west side of Plant City. Back in Tampa, one of my go-to railfan spots is Navy Y in Ybor City. This is the spot on the CSX A-line where Amtrak trains coming into Tampa turn around and back into the station. This is old ACL territory in a still very industrial section of Tampa. A telltale artifact from the coastline is this steam locomotive tire. Engine shops had these replacement tires for wheels running thin or with flat spots. The signal people took used tires and welded them to rails for posts and then set them around the crossing signals. ACL did this all over to protect crossing signals from truck drivers that might cut the street corner and wreck the signal. This is 36th Street, where it crosses the south leg of the Navy Y. Walking up 50 feet, we can see the north leg as it crosses 7th Avenue. This is actually Amtrak's southbound Floridian, which is actually the combined Capital Limited and Silver Star.
Track 91, clear Navy.
It keeps its old train number 91 on CSX. Behind us is the signal South Leg Navy Y, protecting the switch leading out to the main line. Now this one has 2 fixed red lights on the top. As in the other examples, it's a question of speed here. Right now, the 2 reds with a green on the bottom gives us a slow clear. Slow speed through the turnouts, then proceed. The only other aspects you can get here are 2 reds over a yellow, slow approach, 2 reds over lunar white, restricting,
or all reds, an absolute stop. In a few minutes, they start backing up toward the station. Coming around the curve at slow speed, they cross 7th Avenue as normal, but a few more feet and they must stop for the 36th Street crossing because it has no gates and CSX requires it to be flagged. The garbage truck shows why.
Exit 81. Cars is protected. Take that one car, pick up in the house. Alright, bring it back through. Alright, be down to the safe spot. Knock it down that so quick with line to 50. Set up to the TN, milkshake, 50 cars, 91. That's 30 TN and 50. Gotta upgrade TN, milkshake, 50 cars, 91. And upgrade.
And one more thing here at Navy. Even if your eyes don't catch it, your nose will. The Bread House 2.0. And they do exactly what the sign says. They bake bread every day. The old building doesn't look like much, but the smell here is incredible.
This is just a small handful of the great train watching spots that we have around the Tampa area. I picked these for winter visitors to the area because they're relatively close and relatively easy to get to. Now, we got 2 new signs on the fence. The first one is from my friend, my close friend since the 9th grade in Tallahassee, James McAdams. He and his wife Amanda recently took a vacation to Alaska, and one of the excursions they took was the Alaska Railroad. He told me that it is a trip that I should not miss, so we're not going to. And he sent me that Alaska Railroad sign there. It's a souvenir sign, and I really appreciate that. Fits perfectly on the fence. Second is from my friend Travis Taylor up in North Florida. That one is a sure enough drawbridge warning sign, drawbridge 1 mile. Travis is not 100% certain where it came from, likely off the SCL or the Southern. We'll find out. When I find out, I'll let you know. In any case, many thanks to Travis for that really nice artifact. YouTube recently told me I have 275 videos here on the Distant Signal channel. So, for those of you who are fans of the channel, and maybe there's a few of those you have missed, go back, check those out. They're all up there. They're all free to watch. So check that out. 275 videos, just in case there's some of them you haven't seen. As always, hit that like button down there. That's really important. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that. Write your comments in the comment section down below. I read them all and try to reply to as many as I can. And let's make plans very soon to meet up again somewhere out there on the high iron. And until then, this is Danny Harmon, out.